Welcome to Whippoorwill Holler. I'm Miss Lori and this is Mr. Brown. We live in the hills of Arkansas. We love the Lord. Keepers of the old ways, but accept some of the new. We love to cook and we love to eat. We love to garden. It's in our blood. It's how we stay sustainable and fill our pantry. We do a lot of canning and preserving. We live a sustainable life. We love our family. We work hard. And every once in a while, we like to dance. So y'all join us. And we're going to do is we're going to wash our cucumbers really good. And I'm going to use... the recipe calls for 5 medium cucumbers. I'm going to double the recipe. So I will tell y'all the single recipe and then the double recipe. And I'll also put it down in my description box. If you don't have cucumbers coming off yet, you can go to the farmer's market. Get you some cucumbers. And if you just want to do the single batch, if you're a new canner and you don't want to take on doing such a double batch, you'll get, I'm not sure how many pints yet I'll be getting. Sometimes it's different, but we'll know by the end of the video. But just always make sure that you wash your veggies really good. So I'm going to get all these washed, and then we'll start getting all of our vegetables cut up for the relish. I'm just going to show you real quick for my recipe. For the single recipe, you're going to need about 5 medium cucumbers. You're going to need 2 medium onions. And let's see, the recipe calls for 1 cup of green bell pepper, which is a large, and 1 cup of red bell pepper, which is a large bell pepper. I don't have a bunch of bell peppers coming off yet, but I do have some of these, what they're called, I think the pronunciation is Provolone or something like that, but it's a type of sweet bell pepper, and this is what I've got, so that's what I'm going to be using. But the recipe calls for a large green and a large red. So, but I'm going to be doubling. So that's why you see I've got 4 onions here. I'm not going to have enough bell pepper, but I think I'll be okay on the bell peppers. I wish I had 2 large ones, but at this point I don't. But like I said, the recipe will be down in the description box, and it's all going to turn out really good. So let's get our vegetables cut up and processed, and we'll start this. This is a really good sweet relish recipe, and we just love sweet relish on our hot dogs and stuff like that. I put it in my potato salad. I put it in my chicken salad, just different things like that I use it for. My egg salad. Some people don't like sweet relish. Some people like dill relish, and we'll be doing dill relish too, because I use dill relish in some recipes too, so we'll be doing that later on. But if you're new to canning, and this really is something you'd like to do, it's going to be easy steps. I'll take it slow, and it'll be water bath. It won't be in the pressure canner. So this is something you'll be able to do. So let's get started on preparing our veggies. We got our cucumbers cut up, our onions, and our bell peppers, and we're going to put them all in this big bowl back here. Now I just cut up my onions and bell peppers by hand. Now whatever apparatus you got to cut your stuff up, that's wonderful. I love dicing up vegetables. It's just therapeutic to me. But I couldn't get, and I usually don't get my cucumbers the size that I really want, and I kind of like my cucumbers to be kind of same size when it comes to relish. So I use my handy dandy dicer right here that I got off Amazon a long time ago. And it works real well. I'm sure a lot of y'all have these. I cut them cucumbers up really fast. You could do your onions that way and your bell peppers. But I just done my cucumbers. This little thing is well worth its money, I can tell you. Especially in the summertime when you're doing a lot of canning and putting up. So, we're going to get all this in the bowl. I'm going to get y'all switched around here where y'all can see better. Okay, I'm going to tell y'all how many cucumbers to use. What you want after chopping them up is you want a quart. I'm doing double, so I'm doing 2 quarts, and there may just be a little bit more cucumbers in here, but not much. So that's about 1 quart's going to be about 5 medium cucumbers usually, just depends. So if you got 5 medium cucumbers, you'll be good. But like I said, I'm doubling this. So we're going to get our onions in here. And I've got 4 medium-sized onions. The recipe calls for 2 onions. And I've also got, and I showed y'all that earlier, my bell peppers. Now I don't feel like I've got enough bell peppers, but we're going to make do with what I got. I needed 4 large. But I think I'll be okay with this, with what I've got. You want a big enough bowl to put all this in, because what we're going to do is we're going to salt it and we're going to let it set for a couple hours. So you want to do this in the morning, and you'll be canning it, in a couple hours after that, because it's got to sit and get all them juices out there. So let me get my salt. Okay, I'm going to kind of mix this up a little bit before I put my salt on it. Look how pretty it is. I love sweet relish. I just love it in so many things. And it's such a good thing to have in your pantry, especially when you got so many cucumbers coming off. And you're like, I've made so much pickles, and I've done this, and last year or in the year before, I made squash pickles, and my favorite is squash relish, and I have a video on that. If I can get the link and remember it, I'll put it down below. And we absolutely ate every bit of it. Squash relish. Okay, now that I got that mixed up, I'm going to take 1/4 cup of salt. We're just going to sprinkle it around. And I'm going to mix that up. Just like this. Get all that salt on all them veggies, especially the cucumbers, because that's going to draw out a lot of that water. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the veggies with cold water. And I know you're thinking, well, how is that salt going to draw out the moisture if you're putting more moisture in it? And I'm telling you, it works. And the cold water is going to keep your veggies from getting brown, turning brown, your cucumbers and stuff. So what we'll do is I'll cover this. I'm going to let it sit for about 2 hours. That salt, it just does a lot of different things to these veggies before you pickle them. So I'm going to cover this. It's going to sit for 2 hours. Then we'll be back and we'll get our sweet relish made. Okay. Now what you see here is I've got, after our veggies sit in our salt and water brine for a couple hours, the next step is to drain it. So that's what I've done. I put them all in this big drainer. I rinsed them good, so they've been rinsed. And you want to get as much of that water out as you can. So what I've done is I filled this up with water, and I just set it on there to give it some pressure and some weight. And it's really done good. It's drained a lot of that water out and that moisture. So that was our next step. Now guys, I know every time y'all see my sink, it's full of, well, these are clean dishes. And it's always got clean dishes in it, or dirty dishes, because that's how much cooking and stuff we got going on in this house constantly. So anyways, that was our next step. So now all we got to do is put our veggies that's been draining down here, getting the moisture out. We're just going to put them in a pot with the rest of our ingredients and get all that to boiling, and then we'll get to canning. Well, we're out here, guys, on the back porch. We're out here, what we call our summer kitchen. And this is where we do a lot of our cooking, all of our baking, and most of the canning out here during the summertime to keep from heating the cabin up so bad. But this right here, if you ever get a chance of making you some kind of little makeshift summer kitchen, it's well worth it, believe me. I used to have it out under the cooking shed, and we had this screened-in back porch that we weren't really using except to store a bunch of stuff. So I thought, well, it's screened in, I need to make a summer kitchen out of it, and that's what we done. And I really enjoy it. So let's get busy canning up the sweet relish. So I've got my pot here, and you can use any big pot that you have that's big enough to hold your pint jars and have at least an inch of water over your jars when you put it into to process will work. A lot of people will say, well, I don't have a water bath canner. A lot of people don't. There was years I didn't have one either, but I had a really big pot that worked, and it worked really well. So anyways, that's what I'm using today, is just my big pot here. And over here, I'm going to get y'all just a little bit closer. Okay, I've got my pot here. And what I've got in here, and what I tell you is the recipe, but mine's going to look like more because I doubled the recipe. But in my pot here, you're going to need 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. You're going to need 3½ cups of sugar, 1 tablespoon of celery seed, and 1 tablespoon of mustard seed. And right here is my mustard seed and my celery seed. And of course, I've doubled mine, so I'm going to put that in there with my vinegar and my sugar. And all I'm going to do is get this up to a boil. Now, I've had people ask me, Miss Lori, do you use your homemade vinegar to can with? And no, I don't. And the reason why is because I do not know what the acidity is for sure on my apple cider vinegar or any of them, so I don't take that chance. But anyways, all you got to do once you get all that mixed up is let this come to a good boil. I've got my pint jars in here. I'm going to let that come up to a boil and let them get hot and sterilize. If you're not wanting to do them in pints, you can sure do them in half pints. I just know that I'm going to do them in pints because we use them, especially in the summertime. I use sweet relish really quick. I mean, it'll go quick. So half pints, pints, either one's going to work. So I'm going to wait till this comes up to a boil, then we're going to put our vegetables in there. Veggies are still looking really good. You can see how I've got most of the salt brine off of it, drained it for quite a while, and put that weight, you know, the weight of that pot on it and let it drain good. It smells really, really good. Looking good. Okay, it's come to a boil now. So I'm going to take my veggies that I've drained and we're going to put them in this pot. And of course your veggies are going to cook down even. They'll cook down even in 10 minutes, and then when you process them a little bit, they'll cook down just a little bit more. But I still like a little bit of crunch in my relish. And if you're not pressure canning it, you're going to have that crunch, especially after brining it. So I'm going to stir this good. Then we're going to let it come up to another boil. And we'll boil it for 10 minutes. I just love the pretty colors in it. You know, the sun was shining a while ago when I first come out here and started cleaning, getting stuff ready to can, and then it started clouding up and started sprinkling. But that's okay, because we always need the rain for the gardens. So our jars are getting ready. My lids are good and clean, sterilized. I got that in a pot. And I've got everything ready for canning up our relish when it gets done. 10 minutes after it starts boiling. Okay, our veggies have come up to a good boil, and I'm going to time them for 10 minutes. Okay, we got our stuff has been boiling for a good 10 minutes. I got it down here, it's still good and hot. My jars are hot, and I've been filling them to 1/4 of an inch headspace is what you want on this. And like I said, I wasn't for sure how much relish we would get because I doubled the recipe, but I'm putting it in pint jars, so it's all on how you want to store it. If you want to store it in half pints, that's fine. I just know that whenever I do relish, I do it in pints because we use it up pretty quick in the summertime especially. We don't go through as much in the wintertime. But I think from the way it looks, with me doubling this recipe, I'm going to get 5 pints. You want, like I said, 1/4 of an inch headspace there. So let me turn around and get one more jar. My jars are good and hot. The sun's still not come back out. Still kind of cloudy. And if you think you're kind of getting short on the veggies, but you got too much rind, just put it in smaller jars. It smells so good. So I'm going to get this rest of these jarred up. Then we'll get our jars wiped off and the lids on them. And I'm going to take some vinegar and I'm just going to take it and wipe around my rims real good. Make sure there's nothing sticky, no food particles or nothing on there, so it is sealed good. And when I'm wiping my rims, I can feel the top of it, make sure it's not chipped. But I also, after I dip it back in the vinegar, I change the part of my towel, because if you just keep wiping with the same spot, all you're doing is wiping what you wiped off the last jar. You're wiping it right back on your jar. Or that's just me, you know. So kind of change it around. See, I can feel the sticky on top of that from the brine. Make sure we get it good and clean because it's got a lot of sugar in it. You can make this with a sugar substitute. A lot of people use stuff like monk fruit and stuff like that. And I'm just going to put my lids on here. And like I said, we're going to water bath these. We're not going to pressure can them. This is a really simple, easy recipe. Whoops. The only reason it seems like it takes so long when you're doing a video on it because you have to just stop and do step by step by step. So it does seem longer, but it really doesn't take that long to do it. The jar is really hot. Finger tight. And then we're going to put them back in the hot water bath. I'm going to let them come completely up to a good rolling boil. And then we'll process them for about 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to let them come up to a good rolling boil before I start timing. We got our relish done. It's summertime and canning season has just begun. So woohoo, we love it, don't we? There's going to be more canning videos to come. Not for sure what it's going to be, but it's going to be something good, I guarantee you. So y'all come back and see us here in Whippoorwill Holler.